The entire idea for the title of tonight's show. It's the word double, the letter U, Teee, and Efff, a bunch of question marks. So I was like, yeah, we're just going to roll with that for the title, because that's pretty...
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk, or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your health care while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
At St. Jude, a family never sees a bill at all. It's like the world has been lifted off of your shoulders.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Sometimes riders feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
All right, folks. Hey, guess what? It's Thursday. That also means that since it's just a few minutes past the hour of 10 Eastern, it's time for the Jen and Rick Show, which is not so affectionately titled WTF, because most of what we're going to talk about tonight is really, really weird, really, really confusing. But if you'll pardon me for just a moment, now that I have Jen alone with me here, I'm going to reach under my desk and click this little button. Nobody pay attention to this locking sound that's about to happen. No, I'm just playing. All right. So anyway, my co-host is here, and she is safe. No matter, I'm not Matt Lauer, so there's no locking mechanism in the studio or anything yet.
Oh my gosh!
But I have.
Okay, and did you see about that though? Did you see about that though? That there were a couple others, particularly another woman that said, "I don't know whether this is good or bad, like whether it normalizes it or whether it, like they were also up to no good." But this is actually there are quite a few exec offices and other kind of like sensitive offices at 30 Rock that have this feature.
Well, yeah, it's a new thing from Staples. It's called the sleazy button.
But I just thought, that won't really help them, I don't think. I mean, I guess it's worse if they only had it installed for him by himself. But but if it's like, some of them have it, I don't know, that it just seems kind of weird. And I saw some people defending that, trying to be like, well, you understand that when you are having a private conversation with someone, if there's maybe sensitive information, then you can just push the button and lock the door and not have to worry about someone walking in and overhearing something they shouldn't, particularly contract negotiations and blah. And I'm like, give me a break. You can't walk over. If it's that important, you can get up and walk over there and lock it. That is the most ridiculous excuse.
Now that it's come out that there's that a lot of the top level execs and stuff have those in there, I think what that actually is it maybe turns their office into kind of a panic room. I think might have been the intent, where they could
but why haven't they come out and said that?
Because
it's for the safety of us, and so that's not part of this.
Well, I think the reason they haven't come out and said that now is because whether that was the original intent or not, Matt Lauer has forever had that button rechristened the sleazy button.
Well, and now he's suing them, so.
Well, that's because they knew, and he knows.
Absolutely, he's suing them, and I don't like that he's suing them for wrongful termination, because no matter what, he was correctly terminated. But it's wrongful in the fact that, they knew, they allowed, enabled, ignored, whatever position you take on it. There was too much. And I know a few other people that seem to think that are pretty well versed in all of this legal stuff, that seem to think that this is probably means even more than that. Means that he's got something on them, which may be about other top level people, other talent, other dirty secrets, which wouldn't surprise me because, I mean, these people stick together, right? Until one of them gets screwed and then they all turn on each other.
That's pretty much exactly what happens. These people stick together. That's just pretty simple.
Yeah. One gets caught and then they all like go, and they run away and they try to say all these things. And then they're like, haha, I've still got something on you though. So pay me the rest of my contract. So he'll probably win because they'll settle. Not because he'll win in court, but because they'll settle.
Yeah, I mean, no, they'll absolutely settle because some bean counter is going to come out and be like, well, guys, it'll be less money if we just go ahead and give him what he wants instead of. But see, the thing.
Well, and also because anybody that fears that there could be anything on them, or not just anything on them, but that he could go, oh no, this person knew because of this, this, and this, and if he has text messages or emails or any sort of documentation of anything and of anyone knowing and not doing something about it. And you've already got other talent that has said things in the past, like Katie Couric has said before about him pinching her on the butt or smacking her butt. And, everyone has kind of ignored that type of stuff. And so I think it's more of they'll settle because, yes, it's cheaper in the long run, but also they're going to cover themselves. I mean, they're going to protect their own butts too.
Now, this I'm going to say only because my wife and I were actually having a conversation about some of this earlier, and she was talking about one of the alleged complaints about some audio of Matt, when Katie Couric had bent over or something and they were like in a meeting or something, he had commented about, ooh, nice angle. So that was one of the things that she found offensive, which, yes, is offensive. So please don't misunderstand what I'm about to say. But my wife, who works as... well, actually, I won't tell you where she works or what she does, but she works in an industry where it is predominantly male. And they are not the namby-pamby milquetoast males that we have today. And her exact words were, when she saw this as part of the complaint, was like, if that's sexual harassment, no men anywhere would be in my company because they've all said worse than me, and we all just let it slide.
Yeah, I think the thing here is, and believe me, y'all all know I work in events and the service industry, and it is about as crude as it gets from both sexes, actually. That's the thing that surprises most people in that industry, is that it's very dirty from both sides. It's not heavily led by males. It's both ways. And not only that, but you don't just get it from coworkers and things like that, but you get it from customers because you're serving them and they think that they can treat you however they want and get away with it because the customer is always right? Well, not when you have Jen Holmstead as a cocktail waitress and you smack her on the butt and she turns around and whacks you with her cocktail tray. But you have, okay, sorry, a little bit of bent interruption here. But you also have, you do have a lot more innuendo and you do have a lot of inappropriate convo that's going on or whatever. And, I don't get hypersensitive about that kind of stuff. In general, I think that it's completely fair for someone to call it out when it's happening. And if that person gets bent out of shape, well, too dang bad, because it really isn't appropriate, even if, it's just funny. Oh, we're just joking. Oh, I thought it was cool here. I thought you were cool. That's what I'll get a lot. If someone takes something too far, which by the way, it has to go pretty dang far to take it too far for me. I'm just not that sensitive. And so if someone takes it too far and I pop back, and usually it means I embarrass them in front of people, and then I get lit back from them, that's when I'm like, no, you don't get to do that because you were the one being completely inappropriate and you don't get to be mad about being called out about being inappropriate. Sorry. But, a lot of times, like, I have a hard time getting real riled up about the words. And so I agree with you there. I think that there are times when it's just completely repeated that to such an extent that it's a problem. When someone does stuff like that constantly, repeatedly, and so without a thought that Benjamin, I got kiddo crisis here.
No worries.
But when they just do it so repeatedly that they just don't even think twice about it and they don't care if other people hear or around. That was my thing about him saying that. He was watching, there were producers around, the cameras were still rolling even though they weren't on air. And there's a couple other examples of stuff that he does, that he has said and done much like that too. And so obviously this is someone who feels extremely confident in being able to do that, get away with that, and for no one to ever say anything to him about it. And so and then to know that he has actually, been sexually inappropriate, if not assaulted people, makes it a million times worse. And that's where it's like, see, that's where there were all the red flags. It wasn't just the words he said, it was how often he said it, how comfortable he got doing it. And then add in the other aspects of the, what he started to do behind closed doors that makes it like, that's scary.
Yeah, no, I mean, and again, I'm not trying to belittle anything that's happened. It's just, I think in some ways, some of it's becoming a little extended, so to speak. But, there's been some other interesting things that have kind of come out along those same lines. Like, there's a certain politician running for an office in a certain state. I'm not going to name the state or the politician because I don't want to give them any more publicity than they've already been getting for the last couple of days. But she's actually running for attorney general in the state that she lives in. And she's put out a Facebook ad. And no, we're not running the ad because I don't want to give her any more publicity. But the interesting thing is she opens this ad that's like 2 minutes long, right? By, talking about the fact that, no politician should be showing you their penis. And you don't have to worry about that with me because I don't have one.
Okay.
So then she goes on to like 16 other trains of thought within this 2-minute video. But you don't remember anything else that she said because you're just flashing back to the fact that I'm a woman. You don't have to worry about me showing you my penis.
Oh my gosh.
First of all, that entire statement is disturbing because nowadays we don't know that for sure. Because I know plenty of people who claim to be women who say that I shouldn't be offended if suddenly I find out that they have a penis. So I'm not necessarily so certain. First of all, we don't have to worry about someone who's at least claiming to be a woman showing them showing us their penis. But at the same time, where does this crazy idea come from that women don't sexually harass people? I haven't been able, in the last 6 months or more, I haven't been able to take a single ride home without some sort of a story coming across the wire from somewhere in this country about some female teacher having sex with an underage student. Sorry, last time I checked, using your position of authority to force yourself on people, even if they're like, woohoo, hot for teacher, is still sexual harassment. So what the hell?
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. I think that in a lot of those cases, though, I know that there were a few early on that were pretty famous for getting, kind of off scot-free. But typically now they're convicted, at least to a certain extent. And I think the thing is that if we were to find out that there were some other than just like positions of power, like some females at some companies that you don't know their names, or teachers at schools that you don't know their names until they're on this, they have this trial that kind of goes viral. It just seems that we don't have much of this that comes out about them, about people that are household names, about women that are celebrities. I think they're there. I just wonder if it's a matter of time with even all of this until some men start to point the finger. The problem is, as usual, and typically part of the reason is the power dynamic also includes physicality. And so it's just not going to be as common for a physical harassment to happen from women to men, but doesn't mean it doesn't happen, because I absolutely know at least 2 men who were sexually assaulted. But then it's just also the idea of, as much as all of these feminists, don't want boys to be boys, and they don't want this toxic masculinity, and they don't want men to be threatening to women and all this stuff. When it goes the other way, and when a man comes out and says, I was abused, I was taken advantage of, even sometimes when it's not just by a woman, but by another man, I mean, it just seems like it gets really kind of scoffed at, and it's like, oh, okay, whatever, like, it's not the big, like, man up. And even the feminists try to kind of say that. Liberals say that, and so they tend not to be believed, even among their friends and family. They tend not to be believed by authorities like police officers or their bosses or whoever else that they can go to that's in a position of authority. And society as a whole, I think, is just kind of like, oh, well, what could that little woman really do to you? Even the people that claim to be super progressive. And that's just not fair, and it's not true. And I think it really harms men who are actually abused and assaulted.
No, it absolutely does. But that's one of the things that's been driving me crazy all over social media for the last few days, because as all of these stories keep coming out, I keep seeing all these little movements, so to speak, coming out about talking about, it's time for women to be in more positions of power because women don't do this to men and they won't do this to each other. And I'm like, so quickly they've seemed to have forgotten about being done.
Oh gosh. And I don't mean to sit here and dog women, but
arf. I'm sorry.
There's a reason why there's stereotypes about women bosses with other women. So many of these people can say, so many of these women can sit there and say, oh, if only I had a female boss. Oh, if only I had more female colleagues. Oh, if only. Let me tell you, it ain't all it's cracked up to be. It's good to have a mix. It's good to, but there are all sorts of stereotypes about female bosses and how they treat their woman employees, and it's not good. It's really not good, and that doesn't mean that nobody can be a good one. I happen to be a female boss, so I feel like I do kind of all right. I also do hire a bunch of men. I'm just going to be frank. I tend to hire men. Now I also am kind of in a situation where a lot of times I don't really need to evaluate your skill all that much. A few key positions I do, but I need people that can work and will be on time and can work well. And I have found over the years, I used to hire all these cute girls and thought, oh, this is great. And she can cocktail and she can bartend and she can hostess and she can blah, blah. And over the years, I've just found that with what I have to do and the amount of heavy lifting and long hours on your feet and, being a team player, all working really hard in a very laborious manner, that I tend to get it done more efficiently and have less of the drama and excuses and, oh, my roommate's boyfriend broke up with her, so I have to go home drama than I do when I have a bunch of girls. But people will get really mad at me for saying that kind of thing, but it's true. I also have some really, really kick butt girls that I use regularly that will run circles around any guy that works for me. So don't think that I'm saying they're not out there. This is just my experience in a specific industry.
Yeah, no, definitely agree there. I've known you for a long time, and we've talked a little bit about your business stuff, and I think you would probably be an awesome boss. And I'm not.
Well, I don't take any crap. That's for sure. But here's the funny thing. So I have pretty high expectations. I expect you to work hard. I expect you to be on time. I expect you to be honest, and I expect you to treat people with respect. And part of that honesty means going, Jen, whoops, I know that you said to do this, but I did that, and now there's this problem, and so we can fix it. Might be a little pissed, but I'm not going to be the end of the world. But and so as long as people are willing to. And I run a tight ship with a lot of my stuff. And so as long as people are willing to follow the rules and do as I say, then when we're getting done, I often take my staff out for beers. I make them drinks like after we've finished working. They get to get into cool shows when they're not even on the staff. They get to go see bands like Justin Timberlake, and they get to see Snoop Dogg and things like that because I'll get them into my venue because they worked loyally for me. And so I can really be like that. They either really love me or they really hate me. And the people that really hate me, it's because they are crap workers. Sorry, not sorry.
Aw, say it ain't so. All right, so next up on the WTF train, because I'm getting complaints from the chat room. Apparently people think I can't spell. I spelled it that way on purpose. I was trying to be funny. It's not my fault if the joke went over your head. All right, anyway. So, I guess WTF segment number 2. Apparently, Tariq Nasheed called a black woman a white supremacist today. Or I guess it wasn't today. I guess this was from like November 26th, but I just noticed it today because I was kind of unplugged most of those days. This is actually from a friend of ours who writes for Twitchy. Wow, Tariq Nasheed calls Antonia Acafora a white supremacist, gets owned in brutal back and forth. Basically, he talks about the fact that there's a white supremacist event in Florida next month, and she pops up with, I guess this would be a bad time for me to announce that I'm speaking. And it's a black woman. And then he responds, well, is this a good enough time to let you know that those suspected white supremacists think so lowly of you, they didn't even bother putting you on their main flyer? And, of course, that's when it just kind of turns into this big back and forth and a big knockout. This Tariq Nasheed dude is like, he's nuts. This is the same, unless I'm confusing things, this is the same guy that has in his Twitter bio that he's a Martin Luther King conservative. And he's nowhere, just no.
No, he's not. He's not at all. No, and he is absolutely outrageous. He completely over dramatizes everything. He's, there are those people that are like everything is racist. He's that like on steroids. It's just insane. I mean, this is not the first African American that he's called a white supremacist. He's done it to various different ones. For very benign reasons, even. So he's just a hateful piece of crap who thrives on, kind of the hostility and saying these outrageous things in order to get attention, I think.
Yeah, so I wanted to go over one last thing because this actually does get kind of snippy. During one of the things where she's pointing out the fact that she's like, nice try, we just finalized the details. It also says clearly at the bottom, more speakers to be announced, so they'll add my name later. So he's like, and this is his response. So Ms. Okafor, you are a great example of a very interesting fact I warn people about. Except he spelled it as, it looks like he put warm, not worn. Many first and second generation W Africans, so I'm guessing that might be West Africans, unless he's trying to say white Africans, are some of the biggest white supremacy collaborators. It's no coincidence that you and your fellow Naja Collins Idean are propped up by the NRA and other SWS.
No.
So it's just this is kind of the same thing that we've this has kind of been a recurring theme for the show lately, and this is one of the reasons that I wanted to bring this up, because honestly I just noticed it, but it kind of fit in with the overall arc of the show today. We've been talking about the fact that we have gotten to an era in this country where if you agree with someone, they're perfect, but if you don't, they're dead to you. We see this all the time anymore. This is someone actually calling out another person of color for going to an event, and he's basically calling them out because he's basically saying that they're collaborating with white supremacists because they're willing to speak at this event. That's insanity.
This is like kind of what I was saying about before, when everyone's going down the rabbit hole of the Confederate statues, which then turned into like the founders, and it's like, and I had gone on this rant about if that's where we go, if that's what we lean toward, then there is nothing that can be saved. We should tear down everything that has been built because we can tie it all back in some way to someone who was either racist or a slaveholder. It doesn't even have to be an African American slaveholder. The Romans had slaves too, and they weren't all of color. And everything must be destroyed for indecent acts in the past or wrong attitudes and wrong think. And some of it was truly wrong. Don't get it twisted. It absolutely was wrong, but we'd have nothing left. And that's kind of how this is going with certain members of kind of the radical activist African American community. They are everything is so tainted and so racist that they can't see anything other but through that lens.
It's interesting that you bring that up because there's been back to this whole, the apparent whitewashing of our history. You mentioned that, this stuff was bad, and I don't think anybody that is trying to stand up for the preservation of our history is saying that it's not. But the thing about it is, that was the way things were at the time. We have moved past all of those things. So why do we need to whitewash it from our history? Because, what are we trying to pretend it never happened? Because here's the problem with pretending it never happened. Here's the problem with making it all go away. That means in 2, 3, 4 generations, if we haven't already killed each other before then, we're probably going to be fighting a lot of the same battles again, because by then they won't remember it. And the reason I bring this up is, and this was something that, science fiction and a few other things over the years have tried to point out. Like, there was an episode of the original Star Trek series where they found a parallel planet where there were basically people that were part of a republic, and there were communists there. So one of the points towards the end of the episode, they realized that this was actually a parallel Earth culture where they had a world war that they didn't come back from, like our Earth did in that particular story arc. So what they found was a copy of the Constitution, but nobody really knew what it was anymore, or could even say the words properly, because they stopped being taught about it, because their whole society fell apart. Whether your society remains intact or not, if you stop talking about and studying the things that got your society to a certain point, then eventually you're going to forget what got you here, and eventually we're going to see exactly what we're starting to see now. There are so many people that don't even understand why this country was founded and what the overall point of it was, that they're ready to tear it all down because they think it is the biggest monster ever, when in reality, if not for this country, there probably would still be slavery in a lot more places. Hell, some of these places that they're idolizing still have slavery. We got rid of ours. But, Muslims are awesome, even though, they're one of the Muslim countries are still some of the only countries on the planet that still have slavery. There's now videos coming out of slave exchanges in Muslim countries. Oh, that's no big deal. It's like you and I right now, we're talking about all this sexual harassment stuff.
Well, Rick, you just don't understand the culture.
Yeah, I know.
You just don't understand it.
Well, I'm doomed to never understand it, because I'm part of the patriarchy. We're stupid.
Well, you also have a soul, so.
But I also have a penis, so that negates the soul, remember?
Oh, right. Also, just remember, don't drop your pants unsolicited to anybody, even if you think she totally gave you the green light by walking into your office. Just saying. Just remember that.
So that
seems very hard.
So that wink you gave me a minute ago didn't mean that? Okay, let me pull my pants back up. I'm sorry. Right. Dang it!
Oh man.
All right. So anyway. All right, so anyway, enough of my little rant there. I think we've actually crossed the bottom of the hour threshold, so we should probably take our break now. Yeah, we're a little
Let's
long.
do that and come back and talk about the most egregious thing that happened today.
Yeah, that's why I figured we'd save that for the last half of the show, because that's probably going to beat most of the rest of it. We'll be right back, folks. We're going to take a really quick break, pay a few bills, do the things you got to do to keep a radio station running. We'll be back in about 3 minutes. Stay tuned.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now. 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
All right, folks, welcome back. We are live. This is JandR Show. We do this thing live every Tuesday, Thursday, right here on KLRNradio.com. And I'm actually going to let Jen take lead on this one because she's the one that actually brought the story to the table. So, and I know you were kind of like completely like, oh my God, about it. So I'm going to let you take lead on this one.
Okay. Well, first of all, we have the verdict for the Kate Steinle case came in today, and nobody on the right for sure, but a lot of people should not be very happy about it. So he faced charges of first-degree murder, second-degree murder, and involuntary manslaughter, and he was acquitted of all charges. He was here. He had been deported 5 times before. He was here illegally. He could have also been charged as assault with a deadly weapon. And they convicted him of was being a felon in possession of a firearm. So he'll get maybe 3 years, maybe nothing. So that's pretty outragey. I want to say real quick that I do think that murder was not the right situation. Like after the outrage of it all and the emotional aspect of it came out, that he this beautiful young woman had died at the hands of an illegal immigrant who had been deported many times and had sought refuge in a sanctuary city. That there was no intentional gunning down, that there was a firing of the gun, it ricocheted, and it hit her. So the first-degree murder thing was never going to happen. Maybe you could have gotten a sympathetic jury to do a sympathetic, but it seemed by all accounts that assault with a deadly weapon and possibly involuntary manslaughter was the right one to convict for, and then assault with a deadly weapon was a possibility as well, in addition to the felon possession of a firearm. Unfortunately, they didn't do any of it. And after he is acquitted, his smug attorney goes on and basically tries to blame the administration. Well, he tries to tie it back to the administration in some ways. Let me just read one of his statements real quick. Oh, shoot. This isn't it. Dang it. Well, He basically is like, before anybody says anything about this, particularly our leaders, they need to realize that they are also under investigation, and that they may have their day in court. And I hope that they get, maybe then they'll see that due process is this and that. Da, da, da. Anyways, it was just this really condescending thing. And then in another statement, he said something about Trump and tried to kind of make it about how this nation, that they tried to win this presidency on the back of this case, and that they politicized it and used it as part of their platform in order to which wasn't honorable to Kate, and also was skewed against his client, so he was not going to get a fair trial, and it was all biased, so that Trump could win the nomination. And that's the only reason that anybody on the right cared about this case, was because they wanted to use it for a Republican win, which I just think is pretty disgusting. But that's just me.
I have some of that audio if you want to let people hear sleazeball.
Yeah, the one that I sent you is the part where he's kind of like scolding the administration.
For those who might criticize this verdict, there are a number of people that have commented on this case in the last couple of years. The Attorney General of the United States, the President and Vice President of the United States. Let me just remind them that they are themselves under investigation by a special prosecutor in Washington, D.C., and they may themselves soon avail themselves of the presumption of innocence and beyond a reasonable doubt standard. And so I would ask them to reflect on that before they comment or disparage the result in this case.
Shut up.
My response on Twitter was not quite that nice.
Yeah, no, I figured probably not.
I think that I don't know. It's very frustrating that it's not more than what it is. This seems, like I said again, at the very least, to be involuntary manslaughter. That seems to be right on point. And then you could hit him with that plus the possession of the gun, and you'd see him in prison for anywhere from 20 to 30 years, most likely. I think that you should be able to, and I think there are states where this is true. Of course, not California, but that's because of what their politics are.
Well,
but wait, what?
No, I was going to say, no, I was just going to kind of agree with you. But, one little point I have kind of as an aside. After this and the OJ verdict, I don't think anybody from California should ever be allowed to be on a jury again. I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's kind of what this seems like, right? I mean, so here's what I'm saying. Even if everything that, and by the way, some of the ballistics, it does seem to point that he was not pointing a gun at her in the middle of the street and being like, die, Bia. I mean, that's not how it went down, but he did illegally possess the weapon. And he was illegally in this country for the 5th or 6th time. And he, was reckless with it. So at the very least, you could argue a negligent homicide, or like was on the table, involuntary manslaughter. And it is mind-boggling that they did not proceed with that. There are people that get convicted of murder for shooting trespassers that threaten their home, for shooting, abusers who actually physically, threaten their life. For people that in any number of situations where there's some sort of chaotic moment and someone feels threatened and they shoot someone out of self-defense, and they get convicted for murder all the time, or at least get convicted for manslaughter. And it seems so unjust. And then something like this comes along, and this man should never have been there. He never should have owned the firearm in the first place. And he kills this beautiful young woman who had so much life yet to live. And he just basically gets to walk away. And his attorney has the audacity to lecture all of us on due process and basically civics and how we should behave, and this administration. It is absolutely appalling, and I just think he's looking to become the next big hotshot celebrity lawyer or something, and I just want to punch him in his smug face. But I won't, because I don't do violence like other people do. I mean, I did tell you about that cocktail tray incident, but I was young and the guy smacked my butt. So, just saying.
So I just want to clarify something for some folks based on the information that when we've been going over this. So we know that he had a weapon. We know at some point the weapon was discharged. So I want to clarify something here because of the charge that was on the table. Second-degree manslaughter, or what is more commonly referred to as involuntary manslaughter. Involuntary manslaughter is the unlawful killing of a human being without malice aforethought, meaning there was no intent, either expressed or implied. It is distinguished from voluntary manslaughter because of the absence of intention. So we know that he was convicted for possessing the weapon that was discharged. We know when the weapon discharged, whether he was pointing it at her, pointing it in the air, wherever he was pointing it. As far as we can tell from the ballistics information, that was the gun that killed her. So we know he possessed it. We know it was fired. We know because of the fact that it was fired, she was killed. So explain to me how this charge didn't stick. Sorry, but still.
Yeah, I don't know. I think here that even if the prosecutor sat there and just went hard in the paint for murder the entire time and never really made a case for, oh, and by the way, remember, you can choose involuntary manslaughter because even if it was just an accident, he still took away this life and he still shouldn't have had that firearm and he still shouldn't have been here. Even if he didn't make a great case for that, I'm sorry, common sense, logical deduction here is that, okay, I don't really quite believe them that it's murder, but she was innocent. She was killed under a tragic happenstance by a man who was an illegal in this country and who had an illegal possession of a firearm, which took the life of somebody. And that is completely the definition of involuntary manslaughter.
Well, that's why, because, not everybody knows the definitions, and I figured you did, and I do, but I actually wanted to kind of read it for folks that maybe couldn't put the pieces together as to why this charge should have stuck. This was the perfect charge for the evidence that was there, for what happened, for what the forensics have shown. This was the charge that should have been able to stick, and they got him for illegal possession of a firearm. And I don't understand why. I mean, I get it. It's California. It might as well be its own separate country. Hell, they're pushing for it to become its own separate country. At this point, I will help them. That's how fed up I am with their BS. There are a few people I hope get out before then, but
Yeah.
JD and the Amish one being two of them. But yeah,
I spent so much of my life in California, and I truly do as a state and, and by state, I don't mean the government. I mean the geography and the coastline, and even the mountains and the forests, and even some of the cities. I really do love some of the cities. Just as far as going and enjoying and eating out and all the things that come with like a decent city. I do really like them, and the weather is gorgeous. And I have so many good friends and family there, and I have so many fond memories there. But this is just, the government side of it and the indoctrination and the people that are flocking there, it's too much.
So as we start winding down the show to kind of cap off the last part of the WTF show that I wanted to bring up, why is it you think that all of this stuff with the sexual harassment and all of the, if you really look at what's happened within about the last, 10 or 11 months, pretty much everything about this country has come under attack in one form or another. We've talked about it earlier. We've now got people that are reviving the fact that the third stanza of the national anthem is racist and therefore the entire song should be abolished. Nobody even knows what the third stanza of the national anthem is. I didn't until I looked it up because we don't ever sing anything but the first one. So why does that matter? So then we have the whole, as you said, it started with the Confederacy. Now they're trying to go after the Founding Fathers. They had Washington's plaque removed from his church. We've had the National Football League showing their weirdness. So now people are boycotting that, which is their right. We have Hollywood in flames with sexual harassment scandals coming up out everywhere. We have DC, same thing starting to happen there. Sexual harassment scandals coming out all over the place. It's starting to burn. Now we have the stuff that's going on with the media and all of the sexual harassment scandals that have come out there, because it's not just Matt Lauer. These things are starting to come out all over the place. There was some, I don't even remember the dude's name. Apparently he's like some big PBS kind of radio star dude in some state somewhere, and apparently he was like fired for touching someone inappropriately. And I'm just, as all this stuff starts coming out, I can't help but wonder why now, because the reason that I'm wondering this is because, let's not forget, back in the 90s, when the whole Monica Lewinsky story broke and all this weird thing was going on about Bill Clinton throwing cruise missiles at an aspirin factory, an attorney not being smart enough to plead the fifth, what we found out was stuff that should have been page 1 news became page 13 news, because everybody was talking about what Bill may or may not have done with Monica, not realizing that he really didn't lie when he was standing in front of Senate and said he didn't have sexual relations with that woman. They thought he was referring to Monica. He was actually talking about Hillary. So therefore he wasn't lying. But at the same time, all of these things came out years later about the CIA's involvement in the drug trade in the 80s. And all of that stuff was trying to come out around that same time. And it became page 13, page 14, page 15 under the fold news because of everything that was going on with the aspirin factories and Monica Lewinsky and everything else. So one of the things as I've gotten older, when things really, really just start becoming complete bread and circuses, which is what I feel like we're watching right now, I keep trying to find hints of what's being hidden. I can't find anything yet, but I know it's there. This is driving me crazy that all of this is happening right now. Because somebody pulled a pin somewhere and this whole thing is just exploding, and there has to be a reason, because these are things that people have known about for decades and they're just now starting to come out. And I understand that it may have been, the little Dutch girl with their finger in the dike. Somebody, said something and then the leak turned into a bigger leak and then eventually it just broke. And I get maybe that's what it is. But I don't believe in coincidences. In my line of work for the first part of my life, there was no such thing as coincidence. Where there's smoke, there's fire. That is always true. And there is a reason this is all coming out now. I just wish I could figure out what it is, because it is driving me insane.
Well, I don't really know. I do know that we've got a situation where I've seen a lot of criticism about and now they all come out and blah, 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 blah. I do agree that sometimes when there's just a few accusers, like one person's accused and then another's accused, and it seems to be going after a monetary purpose or whatever, that it can be kind of skeptical. But I'll tell you part of the reason this is happening now, because now we have a climate that has been created where we have actually listened to these people. They've actually been given the platform. We've taken down some very big giants because people have had the courage to stand up, and other people have had the courage to report it, by the way. Because if you remember with Weinstein, one of the things is that many journalists and many newsrooms saw some of this stuff come across their desk for years, and they buried it. And, news directors and producers said, nope, not touching it, because he ruled the kingdom. And that's the case with a lot of these bigwigs, And so I think once someone finally had the guts, or maybe just didn't even know or care anymore because they're just getting a little too far out there, that, they're not quite as influential as they once were. They're getting older or this or that. I don't know, various things like that. Then that started the process of the ball rolling. And then people felt, okay, well, they believed them. They weren't ridiculed. They weren't, slut shamed. They weren't run out of their jobs. So I feel confident now saying what my thing was. And then they felt like they could actually do it. And some of that has to do with Fox News too, the stuff with Roger Ailes, the stuff with Bill O'Reilly. I mean, all of these, media greats have been taken down pretty quickly. And so I think the rampantness of it is because people feel, mostly women, some men, but mostly women feel like they'll be believed now, and they feel like they stand a chance, whereas before they were blackballed and shushed into oblivion.
Yeah, no, and I see that to a point. It's just in my experience, usually when things start coming out as often as these are starting to come out, there's usually another reason why they're all breaking all at once. And I could be wrong. I mean, this could be one of the times it doesn't play out that way, but in my experience, it usually does. So I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop, so to speak. But yeah, so I mean,
maybe Dr. Evil is finally taking over all of media.
Well, if so, then I need to know where Austin Powers is so we can stop him. I'm just playing.
Yeah, or just let him do it and nuke them all.
Yeah, but see, the thing about nuking them, though, is eventually the radiation might get to us, too, and I'm not sure I'm ready for that.
But, I mean, if he could just blow their world up, you know what I mean, and just take them all out, and then he's so ridiculous that, like, he might actually win, but then he's so ridiculous that, you know, he'll be easily manipulated, and then we'll all get jobs.
Yeah, this is true. But, you know, speaking of nuking people, you know, we talked about this a little bit the other night. But, you know, the funny thing about all of this is, you know, we hear in the news that North Korea has actually managed to shoot a missile further than they've ever been able to shoot one before. This missile could technically reach this country. And everybody was like, meh. And Matt Lauer gets fired and everybody's like, oh my God, the world's coming to an end. I don't understand our priorities. This guy could make us all glow in the dark, and nobody seems to really care.
Yeah, I just don't know.
And I mean, you know, I'm just as bad because, you know, I know what people want to talk about when they tune in, and we already have a resident expert with the station that talks about that all the time. So I'm not going to keep trying to step all over her beat when she can talk about it a heck of a lot better than I can. Besides, nobody tunes into me to hear about North Korea unless I'm making fun of him and playing his little sound effect. But you know, we're calling him Rocket Man, which President Trump has now done incessantly, which, as much as I'm not a huge fan of Elton John, that happened to have been one of the only songs that I liked that he did, and now he's killed that for me, so I'm a little sad. But yeah, anyway. So, yeah, fun times. All right.
Yeah.
So, well, believe it or not, we are just about out of time. We got to reset here in a couple minutes to get ready for the America Off the Rails show coming up next. So why don't you remind folks where it is that they can hang out with you when you're not on the radio hanging out with me?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at jhomestead, and you can find me on Facebook, JR Homestead, and you can check out misfitspolitics.com. And we have a new piece up today by Patriot Musket called Masculinity Matters, and it takes a stab at some of the implications behind stripping our men of masculinity in relation to this wave of sexual assault and allegations.
You said stripping, you sexist, you. No, all right, so, you know, one last thing on the way out, and then I'll give out my Twitter information. I had to point this out today because this had to have been one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. Bill O'Reilly basically put out a little blurb today because, you know, for those of you who don't know, now that he's no longer with Fox News, he's doing his own podcast, and I'm sure charging a crazy subscription amount, etc., to get people to listen. But he put out a nice little tweet today, and it was like, how should Americans think about this rampant sexual harassment, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. First of all, it's what should Americans think? I don't know who's running your Twitter account right now, but I kind of thought you were able to speak English a little bit better than that. Second of all, who are you to start talking about how anybody should feel about anything to do with any type of sexual harassment? Because look, dude, whether you want to admit it or not, the fact that you allowed them to let you settle, and I know you didn't have a choice, they probably did it and they made you do it, and it was the only way you were going to get to keep your job. But the problem with settling with that type of stuff is you usually have to sign something that admits that you did something before you give them the money. So at that point, you don't have a leg to stand on, in my opinion, anymore to be talking about Matt Lauer or all of these other people or whether they're innocent or whatever the case may be, because you signed something and you gave people money. So sit down and shut up. That's just me.
Exactly.
But anyway, we're out of time, folks. We will be back with you next Tuesday night. I am Mr. Rick Robbins, co-host of this thing we do right here, Jen and Rick. Also co-host on Friday nights of the Robinson and Wright Show. And coming up here in a second, you'll be tuning in for the Thursday co-hosted edition of America Off the Rails with my co-host, Social Claude. And you can follow along with me on Twitter, should you wish, at Radio Host Rick. I almost stuttered on that like 14 times. My apologies. We are out for the night, folks. We will see you next week. Take care.
God bless.